If you're at the point where Dynasty maybe it's not fun to you or got a little bit too easy, this is going to be the perfect video for you to watch. So today we're going to talk about a bunch of different topics to make your Dynasty more fun, even more entertaining, all of that type stuff, man. If y'all have any ideas, drop them down below in the comment section. Let's use all ideas. You might show me something that I can use for my Dynasty. If y'all enjoy this content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. Probably will be live on Twitch later today on Sunday, so go check out the Twitch down below. So you're doing a new rebuild and you're probably using a smaller team, and your first thing, you bring in an okay high school class, you go to the portal and you just absolutely dominate the portal, bring in a whole entire new roster and flip that small team in 1 year. That is going to make Dynasty way too easy in my opinion. Listen, I love the changes to the portal from last year to this year. I think we're making great steps in the right direction. But the portal has got a little bit too easy for smaller programs. You could just pull the Dion every single year where you could go into the portal with no commits and you could walk out with 35 3-star players, maybe even a couple 4-star commits, and your whole entire roster will look different. It's just ways to use methods to do that. One method we talk a lot about is going after just these 3 stars that's coming from the bigger programs, but they're freshmen, they're younger guys, and they probably just didn't start at their last school. Like a running back from Florida, he's a sophomore, he'll come in as a junior. But this is a guy that's a good player. He probably just didn't see the playing time over there, so he hops in the portal. And then another example like this, Florida State freshman, he's in the portal, but he could be a former 4-star player. He might have star development with off-season training. He could be up into the 80s and could be a great starter for you at your small program. Now, what I'm suggesting is limit the portal. You have to limit yourself in the portal if you want a realistic rebuild, or if you want a rebuild that's not going to be over in 2-3 years with a small program. You got to set some type of guidelines on the portal. What I would suggest, you go, 75% in high school, 25% in the portal, or 80-20, something like that. You got to have something where you're just limiting yourself, man. Maybe you can only sign 7 portal players. Maybe it's 10 portal players. Maybe, you got to have something, or you're just going to completely flip your roster. I've done it many a times. I'm like, damn, this rebuild got a little bit too easy, too quick. Now, when you're the big dog team, I think it should be fair game in the portal. I think you should be able to, do what you want, because that's what happens in real life. The big dogs, or, the big players involved. Let's talk about Texas Tech. Maybe you don't consider them a big dog, but they had a lot of big dog money, and they went in the portal and they completely flipped their roster all in 1 year. And Texas Tech could do that. But if you're Temple, you're not doing that. You're just not. Shout out Temple. So I would just suggest for that, do a rebuild and limit the portal. I would even say turn the portal off for yourself. Don't allow you to sign any portal players, and just do the stuff in the high school rankings, man. Just recruit high school. And if you really want to get crazy, you could turn the entire portal off. Wouldn't be realistic for 2025, but you could turn the entire portal off. And I wouldn't probably do a rebuild like that, because it's just gonna be so much different than what we're used to. I'll probably do some type of live stream series. Right here, I got the portal on max settings. I was just doing some testing. The max settings don't do that much. They really don't. We'll do more testing. But you could turn this entire portal off. You just turn the max transfers all the way down to 0, and nobody will ever transfer. And you'll be safe to bring in whatever you want at the high school, and don't have to worry about them walking out the door. Next, I want to talk about is your playbook, man. And this is an issue I ran into last year. I had the great idea, I'm going to make a custom playbook for my Dynasty. Made the custom playbook. I never lost a game with that custom playbook in 2025. At least in Dynasty, offline Dynasty. Never lost a game with it because the playbook was amazing. I made the playbook to fit my perfect scheme that I had, with that Temple Dynasty last year. I had like 2 great running backs, 1 power back, 1 receiving back. I had a quarterback that could run the ball. So I just made this playbook all centered around that. And that sounds great. It sounds super fun, but it made the game way too easy, man. It just made it too easy. So for me, I would probably not do that again. Feel free to try it. If it works for you, it works for you, but it did not work for me. So I'm suggesting don't make your custom playbook that's going to fit perfectly for your roster and make the game too easy. And then also don't just use your favorite playbooks, man. I know I got 3 playbooks I really like to use in Dynasty. One of them is going to be LSU. The other one's like Oregon, and then the other one is the multiple offense. I just like to use that against simulation, giving y'all some sauce. Now, I wouldn't use them for my Purdue series because it's going to make it too easy. I already know the money plays. I already know all the great plays, I would suggest using your offense or defensive coordinator playbook. How do you do that? It's no great way to really do it, especially if you take over Dynasty and you take over a team that already have coordinators. It's kind of tough to know, what school they're coming from. But when you fire them guys and you bring in new guys, you could bring in a head coach from, Ole Miss. You could bring in the Ole Miss playbook, stuff like that. You could do whatever you want with the books. I would just suggest, using stuff you're not used to. Learn the playbook, see if you like it. Maybe even changing the playbook up mid-season. Maybe not just super realistic, but it could keep your dynasty more refreshing. Another thing, I had to get out of the coach suggestions. I want to use coach suggestions for my dynasty just because I want to have like the OC calling the play and then I'm kind of just running the play. The coach suggestions are trash. That's also why I made my custom playbook, because you could change the coach suggestions with the custom playbook. It made it too easy. But get out of coach suggestions if they're not working for you, man. Coach suggestions, they call the same plays in the same situations and it don't allow you to use your whole playbook. So I had to get out of coach suggestions for my Purdue series and just call my own plays, which, like I said, is unfortunate for me because I just want to be, I just want to seem like I have like an actual offensive coordinator, but it doesn't work too well in the current version of the game. So y'all got the point on that, man. Use your OC and DC playbook, and I will even take it a step further. Consider being more of the adaptive coach. I think a lot of times when we recruit players, we focus on, okay, I have this scheme in mind. I want to run, offense that needs a running quarterback. I need a power back. And I need, 3 fast receivers, whatever. Instead of having that approach where you already know what type of, offense and defense you want to run, and you just looking for players to fit that mode, well, take the opposite approach where you just bring in good players. And then you figure out, okay, I have a quarterback that could actually run the ball a little bit. Okay, good. We're going to run this type of offense. Be the adaptive coach. Build your offense around your players. So this year we have a scrambling quarterback, good speed. He's a backfield creator. But 2 years from now, maybe we'll have a pocket passing quarterback. Okay, that's fine. But we're going to have to now build our offense. We're going to change our playbook, change our offense for a pocket passing quarterback rather than having a scrambling quarterback, man. So point is, don't just recruit the same archetype that you love. I love the athlete dual threat quarterback in this game, but I also really, really do like the pocket passing quarterback as well. So I will bring in both, but it allows you to have some diversity on your team. Like I think about, I don't know why, Chip Kelly always come in my mind when I think about a coach that just need a certain type of offense to succeed. He needs a certain type of offense, in my opinion, to succeed. Now, be the coach that, okay, it don't matter what we got. We're going to make it work. Same thing with defense, man. Bring in not always the best archetype, man. We've made a lot of videos talking about the best archetypes, the best this, the best that, the best archetype that develop with man-u progression, auto progression, all of that stuff. I'm going to say ignore those videos for your dynasty that's trying to be more realistic, man. Just bring in players, whether it's players interested in you, top players, you're looking at whatever. Just bring in players and, okay, I have my roster. Now I'm going to build my offense around the roster I currently have. I promise you that would just make things more fun and interesting rather than, oh, I need to go get, 3 raw strength linemen so I can run the ball really well. That's a great idea. I'm not going to lie. It is. It makes sense. But what if you just went out there looking for, hey, I just need 5 guys that could play O-line at a high level. It don't matter what they could do because I'm going to build the offense around them. Okay, it just looks like our left side offensive line is really good at running the ball. Okay, we got 3 raw strength linemen from, center all the way over to left tackle. We're going to run the ball on the left side whenever we're looking to run because we know that's the strong side of the O-line. and that's just makes it a little bit more fun in my opinion. Like I said, being more the adaptive coach that's going to build your offense off of what type players you have on your roster, rather than, oh, I need a running quarterback to run the offense that I want to run. Yes, you do, but you could have a lot more fun if you diversify. So I hope all of that made sense to you guys, man. I hope all that stuff made sense. I just want to emphasize this point. Do not always just go after the best archetypes, man. When I'm looking at the prospect list, you could search by the best archetype. You look at the pure running, the pocket pass, or whatever position, whatever you like, you could search by that. Man, just bring in good players that's interested in you. That would be my suggestion. Just bring in good players that's interested in you. Sometimes, you're going to have the route artist and the gritty possession receiver. I personally, would steer away from the gritty possession receiver, but I played with a gritty possession receiver, and they're pretty fun to use in Dynasty. I'm not going to lie. They're pretty fun. The physical route running tight end, I talked about that tight end, how I don't like it. And someone made the comment, hey, you don't play the game. You shouldn't talk about these archetypes. You don't play the game enough to say the physical route running tight end is not good. That tight end is the best tight end in the game. Listen, I played with those tight ends. They're very good in the pass game. They suck in the run game. That's why I don't like them. Now, you could use them for your offense because you don't care about running the ball. That's fine. Just be willing to try archetypes that you might think you don't like, because you could surprise yourself. Like I said, the gritty possession receiver surprised me. Physical route running tight end did not surprise me. I already know the book on those guys. They're good catching the ball. Just can't run the ball with those guys. I will also say, if your dynasty getting a little bit too easy, consider playing the moments, And just because the moments will sell you, yes, that do sound crazy. The moments will sell you though, but it allows your roster to matter more than your skill level. That's why for my live stream series, I like to play the moments, because not only do I have to be okay at the game and, come up in these big situations, these moments where I need to perform, but I also have to build a good enough roster where they're going to sim well. And, it's not just all my skill level. So it matters of like doing some of the behind the scenes stuff also. So I like to do that as well. And then it also just allows you to get through seasons faster. So if I want to do a rebuild that's going to last multiple years, I don't have all that much time. I could, play a whole season in 2 hours, compared to if I play every game, that might take 2 weeks or whatever. So, consider playing the moments, consider simming some games if that's your thing. At least try it out, because you might really enjoy it. Next, I just sim to training results because I want to talk about this for you guys, man. I think you should consider not manual progressing your players. It's a super fun feature. I like it. I'm glad they added it to the game. I think it makes Dynasty a tad bit too easy. For example, our quarterback here, he's already a 97 overall. He has 111 skill points to work with. He has 111. He's an elite development, but he has a lot of skill points to work with. But point is, like, you could just go crazy with manual progression, and you could just focus on the things that only matter for that player. So you could get players drafted super easy. You could just boost guys' speed. I think auto progression just leads to a little bit more realism. And then also just a little bit more sim, gameplay, whatever. So for example, Alex right here, let's just progress him. And he's an 87 overall. He's a raw strength. Let's just get his overall max. Let's see if we could do that. How high we get his overall. Unfortunately, we can't upgrade the run blocking. That will affect his overall a little bit more. But let's just do the pass blocking. That will get his overall up pretty nice. Now he's up to a 92, and what else we want to focus on? I guess the footwork, maybe that'll boost his overall a little bit. Maybe go 1 into the power. And we just increase his overall pretty nicely. Nothing too crazy. If we could have increased the run blocking, we could have got him up to a 99 in my opinion. But he got them skill caps for run blocking. Now, he looks like a phenomenal player. But auto progression would have maybe increased his abilities a little bit and not just focus on the overall. They would just did it a little bit different in the way you would have. So for my Purdue series, I keep bringing it up. I don't manually progress the players. I just let the CPU auto progress them, and I like the manual progression feature. I really do. But I think auto progression is best for a sim style dynasty, but do whatever works for you. Next, if your dynasty maybe got too easy, when you're recruiting, consider only going after players that's interested in you. And for a small team, that's going to be tough when you only have, 2 stars and a couple 3-star players interested in you because you picked Delaware, So it could be tough, and some teams don't have any good players interested in them. You could pick Kansas State, and you're going to have like 10 total high schoolers interested in you. Some teams are glitched, 100%. Some teams are glitch. But go at the players that's interested in you. This is our, test dynasty. We're Alabama, so obviously we got a ton of 5 stars and 4 stars interested in you. So this is not the best example. But with your smaller team, just go at the players interested in you. And if that runs out too quickly, then rely on your pipeline. You could search by players within your pipeline, and those guys will only show up, man. So only go at the players in your pipeline or players that's only interested in you, just to keep things, I would call it a little bit more realistic. Now, next idea, some of y'all might not like this, and I'm gonna suggest do a no scout dynasty. In my opinion, when you scout a player, you get too much information. You get 10 attributes, and you get their exact attribute. Y'all, you could instantly tell if a player is amazing or not. Like, you could instantly tell. Like, why do I get to know exactly his speed rating? I think about Madden. When you are scouting in Madden, you don't get to see the draft prospects' actual ratings. I believe you just get the grade. So it'd be like a C+, C-, F, whatever. I personally think we should have some type of system like that in college football. I just think it's too much information. Like, I get 10 ratings. I get all of his abilities, mental and physical. I just know instantly if he's a dog. So I feel like we should get a little bit less attributes, but also then make the national rank matter more. The national rank, if you don't know, means nothing in this game. It's all star ranking. 4-star, 5-star, 3-star, all of that stuff matters. The national rank don't mean a damn thing, which is unfortunate because the number 1 5-star, it could be exactly the same as the number 32nd 5-star. Is what it is. So I feel as though we got too much information. So to counter that, to make your dynasty maybe a little bit harder, do not scout. And that's tough. That is a tough one because scouting is super important. You're able to get to see, I ain't even talk about it. You get to see if he's a gem or a buzz. And you still could, bring in a buzz player. He could have a phenomenal career. Go ahead, get drafted, get to a high overall. But when you get a gem, 4-star player, you pretty much know he's coming in with star development. It's not guaranteed. They could have impact, but pretty much know he's coming in with star development, And that's a big deal because star development is absolutely game changing. It's very good. Star development and elite development just seems super game changing for a player. Impact development, okay. Normal development, horrible. But like having that star development is tremendous. Now, when you don't scout these players, you're just basing it off of height, weight, national rank. I wish it mattered. It don't. So you're not gonna base it on that. But then archetype, and you could even do hometown. You could even do hometown, some stuff like that. So it would just make things a little bit more challenging. You don't know what you're getting when you don't scout. It's more of a surprise in the off season, in my opinion, when you don't scout. Especially when you hit that national signing day, you get to see your players, overalls, and you also get to see their development traits. That moment is going to be, more special, if you want to say it like that, than, when I know this guy going to be a dog. I know for a fact he has, good attributes, and he's a gem. He's a 5-star. I know he's going to be an absolute animal. So I would suggest it, try it for a season. If you don't like it, move on. I want to do a whole live stream series where I do no scout and just see how it goes. I'll also say just try to keep things realistic. And what do that mean? I think we say that all the time. Keep things realistic. Well, play into the realism of that program. Temple rebuild. I bring up Temple because that's a school that means a lot to me and a school I know a lot about. If you're doing the Temple rebuild, you shouldn't go get, 3-4-star players from Louisiana. Not realistic. It's not realistic. You should be focusing on players in Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey, maybe even Connecticut, Mass, Ohio. Maybe you dip down to Florida. you should focus on guys on that side of the United States. And also guys within your pipeline, but you mainly should be focusing on guys in your state, and the surrounding states. Maryland, if you want to dip into the DMV, that makes sense. But keep it realistic when you're recruiting, okay? We're Temple. Philadelphia, they're known for being gritty. I want to build a gritty defense, so I want to get some box specialist safeties that's going to be able to hit, 2 box specialist safeties, and I want some linebackers that's all thumpers. We want a gritty defense. Or if you're, Tulane and you want to build the speed offense, go get a bunch of fast guys, build into some of that stuff, some of the tradition that these programs have, or maybe even traditions you want to create for a program, man. Don't be scared to take that route and keep it, like I said, more realistic, or make your own realism with your dynasty. It's your world. Do what you want with it. And then last one, go get you some sliders, man. Go get you some sliders. I'll show you what I'm playing on for my Purdue series here. I showed it plenty of times, but I still get asked pretty often what sliders you playing on. So those going to be the wear and tear and the quarter length, all of those sliders. And then I'll show you XP sliders I did not touch, but the gameplay sliders I'll show you here. I would say these are Mat 10 sliders, and I'm kind of at the edge of changing them personally. I think they got a little bit too easy for my liking, So I'm kind of at the spot where I would adjust these sliders and just make them a little bit more challenging for me personally, So I'm kind of at that point, but find your own slider set. I want to try this extreme slider set where just everything's down for the CPU or for the player, and then everything's up for the CPU. I just want to try that, see what happens, see if I like it, see how challenging it really is. But don't be scared to test these sliders, man. Just know everything affects everything, which is interesting, but keep that in mind with these sliders, man. But that's all I got for y'all boys, man. If y'all enjoyed this content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate y'all boys watching. Check out the Twitch. We probably will be live later today on Sunday, and we on to the next one.